Morning, Bill.
Hey, Michael, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thanks.
Good.
How's summer for you?
Busy.
Yeah, good.
I got crisis today, so I got a lot of stuff to do today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing. We've got a deadline on Friday, so
Yeah.
gotta take care of that.
Yeah.
But that's okay. And plus, I uh, I enjoy summer, and I also enjoy work.
Yeah, me too. Oh. Well, it's nice to see Mark out of the hospital. I don't know how he's doing, but
Well, he and I have been exchanging texts, so I think he's okay, but his heart is enlarged, and so he's got some recovery to do. So that's
yeah.
something he's got to work through,
Yep.
Yeah.
Morning, Bill.
Howdy.
Good morning, Bill Doolittle. This is Bill Spian.
Morning, Cheryl.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good.
Morning.
Can you see I'm chilled? I just got back from 5 days of no technology. Well, okay, I did look at my phone twice because my mom's VoIP line at home wasn't working at all. So I had to get involved with our Compton cable. Kind of serious when she has no phone.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of had explained to them, you guys will appreciate this since our topic, it's her caregiver was with her. So that's how we found out. And what was happening is she would call me and I would see it come in. So the data connection was there, but no voice. So yeah, either direction. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of serious. And guys, you'll appreciate this because I got on the case of our provider. It's like, there is no 911 if her caregiver's not there. None.
Right.
So yeah. I by the way, I did do that. I said, because he was like, oh, we'll fix it on Monday. Doesn't she have a cell phone? No. That was the attitude of the provider. And I'm like, you guys know me so well. I'm like, okay, right now I'm not panicking because her caregiver's there. And she does have a cell phone, but 8:30 in the morning on a Saturday, she will not be there because she goes to her other job. So this will be fixed by 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yes. Good.
Wow.
For you. I mean, it's ridiculous how people just consider 911. Yeah.
The attitude of, oh, well, doesn't she have a cell phone?
Yeah.
Sorry, you're hearing my reel, and you guys can appreciate, because I said this is not about her having her friends just call and visit.
Yep.
Right. Exactly.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Fran.
How's it going?
Good. Hi, Barb. Hi, Beth.
Hello.
Hello.
Gracious good morning to everyone.
Or afternoon.
Hey, Beth, I have a hard stop at 9:30. I've got an emergency with a customer that I got to deal with this morning. So
Okay.
I'll have to go out.
Well, we don't have too much of a formal agenda today. Today, we're going to go over the FAQs.
Right.
So, and thinking that would finally give people the opportunity to ask all those questions they've wanted to ask, where we kept telling them, no, we're going to finish our agenda, doggone it.
Yes.
Yep. So that's the plan for today. It's pretty cash and a lot of Q&A.
Yeah. Good.
Hey, Scott, again, thanks for the quick answer yesterday.
Yeah, anytime.
Sorry, guys, our VAC on so many levels has just been stepping up for me, all of you guys. So I just want to say thank you again.
That's awesome, Cheryl.
Just trying to figure out. just one speaker.
So I gotta tell you guys a quick fun thing. So I'm going out Friday night to do quarter-mile drag race against my brother. So I had to watch Jay Leno's video on how I'm supposed to do the racing start on my bends. And I got 5 more horsepower than he does, but he's done the track before. I haven't done drag racing since I was 16, which was a few years ago. So it should be interesting.
Okay, I also.
You're gonna drive?
Hey,
You're
Fletch.
actually gonna drive?
You what?
You're actually going to drive?
Yeah.
Oh, look at Fletch. Oh
So
my God.
Fletch is here. Fletch, do you want to give
Yay.
us an update on your sort of status and everything that's gone on?
Well, I was in the hospital I got a thick part muscle and I went into AFib, which was AFib, which is the heart just not pumping effectively. Came home, was home for a day and a half, and then got brought back in by the paramedics, and it's controllable with medication, and we'll see what happens. Go to the doctor tomorrow.
But I don't know what else to check.
How do you feel?
I'm a little tired, but because things aren't pumping efficiently. There's a lot of fluid around my heart.
Oh, rodents, mice.
Oh. The infection, believe it or not, the infection.
Different times,
Hey, Gary, could you mute?
not there anyway.
I'm guessing it's Gary.
No, it's Chris Beck.
Oh, Chris Beck. Okay,
It's
Chris
not
Beck.
me. It's not me this time.
We have had.
Normally me, but today it's not.
Hey
Chris
guys,
Beck, can you mute?
who's
tell
ever
me
the host,
how
you've got the
long
ability to mute people. Please take that action.
Somebody else on Friday afternoon.
I think
Let's
it's
check 'em out.
There we
Yeah. Woo, thank you. Nice. All righty.
Fletch, you're muted. Fletch, you're muted.
There we go. Believe it or not, I came down with a case of mono. I don't know
No
where I
way.
got that, but that was the infection that caused the pericarditis that built the fluid up around my heart, and that was reducing my blood flow. I mean, the aorta was compressed almost halfway, and it was also reducing my lung capacities. That's clearing up, and right now it's just medication and a lot of rest.
Did 911 work when you called?
Yeah, it did.
Did they get the right location?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Fortunately.
If it didn't, Mark would be on the phone with him saying, "You got the wrong location."
I'm virtual.
It's always there's always that hesitation when I dial. It's like, are they gonna get it this time? So,
Oh.
Well, Mark, I didn't hear the L at the end of that the first time you said it. And so what I heard the first time was, I always have hesitation when I die. So I'm glad you added the L on the end of that.
die old. Yeah. So,
How long were you in the hospital, Mark?
well, I was in, first it was Friday through Monday. And then I was out Tuesday and Wednesday, or Tuesday. And then I went back in last Wednesday morning at 4:30 in the morning. I woke up, was nauseous, couldn't breathe. And my wife was at her mother's house and I had to call, I was here by myself. So fortunately I was smart enough to know I wasn't feeling well. And I left the front door unlocked, knowing that if they'd have to get in, I didn't want them breaking down the doors.
That's always the trick, isn't it? You have to remember to open the front door, unlock the front door.
Yep. So, and a good friend of
Oh man,
a
you're
good
muted.
friend of ours that grew up with our daughter. She's now a police officer in town, so she showed up. So it was good to see people that I knew.
Mhm.
Did you have to tell your daughter we have to stop meeting like this?
No kidding. So, but anyway, thanks for all the good wishes from everybody. It was really nice to hear, and I wouldn't miss this session for the world.
Well, thanks, Fletch. And glad to see that you're back.
Glad to be back. So with that, don't let me hold you up.
Okay. Well, let's get started a little bit early then this week. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining once again. It's just 5 after here, and we have another dynamic E911 session, members only today. Beth and the team are going to go through some of the documentation as well as some informal Q&A. It should be really good. So let me share my screen and we will get started. So today is number 66, believe it or not, creating a dynamic E911 consulting practice. This is part 4 of our series, of course. Thank you, Beth and team. So I have 2 polling questions, of course, right? So today's first polling question is, what drives clients E911 compliant? Multiple choice, check all that apply. Federal compliance, possible negative branding, possible risk of litigation, or other. And we know we don't like to sell on the idea of, the litigation factor, but we know that it's also it's definitely an element here, so just give it a couple more seconds here, and actually we'll stop the polling. Let me take a quick snapshot here, and the answer is risk of possible litigation comes in number 1 with federal compliance number 2. So that's quite interesting. It's less about the branding. Anybody have any other? I know there was a couple of others. 7 of us replied with other. Anybody want to share what the other might be from your end? Anybody speak up?
I think providing a safe environment for your employees should be on the list.
Yeah,
that's mine too.
Yeah, OSHA
Thank
comes into it. We're finding a lot of institutions, and I think that airports are included, right? They've got to file a non-compliance report on anything that they're doing that's out of spec. So I guess it all falls within the litigation and the compliance issues, but that's another one I hear.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny because when we talk with our clients about this, in general, they're, they're going to be like, well, that's really expensive. Can we not do it? And well, we can't recommend that you not do it. We have to and so then they go check with legal, and legal says, no, you have to do it. And they go, well, it's awfully expensive, but legal says we have to do it. Okay.
Right.
That's a great intro there, Beth. That's great. I love that. Okay,
Steve, I think
Yes.
one other thing is with the
Sure,
hybrid workforce and the impact on. I'm reading more and more about people not thinking about leaving companies if they can't work from home at least part-time. So I think attraction and retention of people is important.
Agree. Excellent. Well, thanks.
I think somebody might have 2 mics because we've got a little feedback here.
Yeah.
I like the double answers.
You like it? I'm happy to be heard twice, but I don't know how anybody else feels about that.
You can double bill that way, Beth.
I can double bill.
Are you kidding? I'm having trouble with the first one.
Go check. Always be optimist.
All right. So polling question number 2 is, when will enterprises get serious about E911? Is it now, i.e. Q3, Q4, Q1 of next year, Q2 of next year, or later than Q2? This is just a general poll. Check 1, please. And we'll see where this lands. Okay, and let me just wrap this up because most everybody has answered. Thanks, everyone. And again, let me just take a quick snapshot here. Let me get out of this. Let me share the results. So it looks like Q1 2022 seems to be the winner here. So yeah, we're seeing interest, especially if we're doing a major upgrade for a client. Right now we're pushing that. But yeah, I think the maturing level is definitely approaching here. People are realizing they do need to have compliance, especially now that wireless will kick in January 2022. Any comments, anybody on this?
I'd just like to ask Roberta and the team in the north, is the same happening from your perspective?
We have the CRTC ESWG has MLTS contribution. We're just finishing up. There is no regulations and muscle, but it is going to be recommended. And so once it passes and gets posted, it'll probably be, mid 2022.
I'll tell you when it's really going to pick up is when somebody ignores it and something else happens.
Exactly.
There's another name in the newspaper. And
Yeah.
then it's going to go crazy. Because again, I'll bring up the fact that the Hunt family won a substantial financial award when no law existed.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Fletch. I don't even think it's going to have to be a lawsuit. I think it could be something that also generated bad press, right?
Yep.
So I have a question about that. These are laws that are now in place in the US at least. Whose responsibility, or how are, I guess I should say, how are individual owners of these PBXs, et cetera, being notified that they require compliance?
Well, so it's an interesting question, because if they haven't upgraded or replaced, then they're technically in compliance. They still have a liability, right? So unless they're going through a process of an upgrade or a replacement, it's unlikely that they're getting notified. That's my thinking.
Okay, so say
but
they
wait,
are
wait,
upgrading. Well, say they are upgrading. Who is supposed to notify them of this? It's like when you have a new thing come through the IRS or something, you get a letter that says this is the new compliance. How do end users even know that they have to be in compliance?
This was brought up with the FCC, and it's very much the reason why the language is the way it is. They brought in the manufacturers, the distributors, the dealers. So everybody has a hand in this as far as offering a solution. So if you make a PBX, you have to say, well, if you want E911, here's what you do. If you sell a PBX, you say, here's what you need to do to be compliant. Ultimately, it is the end user that has to pull the trigger, but everybody has a hand in this. And if you have someone who doesn't bring it up, they could potentially be, that's a Martha question. But
right. So I don't want to hijack this discussion, but my last question is, and maybe this is just something to take offline, but has anyone seen any major rollouts from manufacturers, distributors, and so forth that this is a big deal now?
I think Roberta had a comment, so let's let her talk.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The major manufacturers being Avaya, Cisco, Mitel, I don't know about Genesis, Scott, they have sent out letters to their major accounts, because I actually helped them write the wording. And then some of the large distributors in the US and Canada, if they're multinational, right? Because it doesn't apply to Canada, but they have been working on campaigns, but they only started them about 3 to 6 months ago. And then as well, companies like Verizon and AT&T are doing it because of their service contracts they have. So the industry has been trying to do the education, but I think there's still gaps, because you're talking, millions of systems, but they have been working on it. They just were like way later than they should have been, Fletch, right? So.
And Carrie's law actually says that the solution must be pre-configured to route 911 calls. So there is an onus on the vendor that when they put it in, it has to route the 911 call correctly.
Well, it's got to be.
And I think the biggest thing too, Denise, is if you're doing a new system or somebody's doing an upgrade, that the 911 aspect's got to be brought to their attention, and specifications have got to be put into a document that these vendors have to respond to. I've been doing that for the last 10 years. And if you don't ask for it, since it's an extra, they don't get that application. So.
And I've seen it two ways from the vendors. We have vendors that'll say, if you want me to do otherwise, you must sign a letter indicating why. And there are reasons for exceptions. But, and on the other hand, we have vendors saying, yeah, if you want to route 911, you have to put in your own POTS lines, for example, a cloud provider. And they just try to, throw the whole thing back to the customer.
Yeah,
Yeah, in fact, we have a document that we'll be providing eventually that is an example of that. So Denise, this document came from another audit consultant in our group where their client was just replacing or upgrading to a cloud solution. And that cloud vendor kind of did a CYA like, hey, I'm not doing anything with 911. So in a sense, that was the notification to the customer.
Gotcha.
But as Art pointed out in the chat, that's a great opportunity to then engage with your client and say, look, see what they're saying, this is kind of what this means. Let me bring in a partner, or I'll do it, whatever. But, let me talk to you about that, or let me get some expert help for you, because you can see they don't want to do it, which should tell you this is a big deal. So we have that example for what it's worth. It shows some back and forth. And what, as Mike said, you'll see from a lot of these vendors, and Beth said, so that'll be out there eventually.
Great.
We have a couple vendors on the call here. I'd love to hear from them and what their side of it is. Maybe VoIP Networks could let us know what their stance is on it.
They're not necessarily providers. Neither Red Sky and or 911 Inform are providers of services. They're actually the mitigation solution to those problems that exist with most cloud providers and or PBXs that are not properly configured and properly designed. So
You said we had VoIP networks on here?
I think Mark Moed's on here, isn't he?
Huh, I didn't see that.
You might want to be careful. We're putting them on the hotspot. They might want legal with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd just like to know what their interface and what other, what other vendors are doing to be compliant for the customer, being compliant for the systems that they're representing and installing. They do have responsibility in this as well, right?
Well, what's
Now, one thing that bothers me is the comment that the cloud vendor said, we're not doing anything. You have to put in POTS lines. That is not a compliant system. The vendor can't say, just put in POTS lines. Every phone has to be able to dial 911.
I've had cloud providers tell this flat out that wasn't their responsibility and that we had to sign off that we were not. We needed to find another way to have 911. So my client ended up putting like an 8x8 on some people's desks. I'm like, this is ridiculous. What about the people that are working from home and they're on a laptop in a call center and their husband has a heart attack on shoveling snow or something? And they're going to use their headset and that laptop to make the call and no 911 presence. I mean, that's bothersome.
Yeah.
So that would be a good future session to have a VAC 911.
Ooh, I like that, a VAC 911.
There you go.
I like that a lot.
I
And
love
it's
it.
not really the soft phones. In my opinion, it's not the soft phones that are really the
problem.
It's the hard phone that's sitting in a home and a child, a relative, a spouse walks up, phone 911 doesn't work. That's what happened to me 10 years ago,
Right.
11 years ago.
I've been trying to hold my tongue. This is Jerry.
Hey, Jerry.
So with all due love and respect to Mr. Fletcher, and I'm glad to see your vertical. Red Sky's business in the last 18 months has almost doubled in size, primarily driven by remote workers taking phones, hard phones, but primarily soft phones out of the office. And employers' responsibilities to treat every employee equally, as Ms. Beyer would say. And so soft phones are a problem. That's what's driving our business. And it's not that the enterprise expects people to dial 911 from a soft phone. It's the CYA, that just in case they do, that soft phone needs to be located, the call needs to be routed, they need to be notified. All of those types of things that, Mark and I are in the business of doing and have been for over 50 years together. So cell phones, to us at least, are a primary driver of people coming and enterprises coming to Red Sky saying, how can we cover everybody, especially our cell phones?
That
I'd
I
like to
agree.
endorse that too, because we're seeing a lot of soft phones that are driving. The soft phones are enabling this work from home, and very few hard phones are actually matriculating to the home. It's all soft phone that I'm seeing. And so I would agree with Jerry. The soft phones are really driving the problem of where are these people when they're using the phone?
Yeah, but
Well, and
soft
you
phone,
know,
soft phone,
here's the
hard
thing.
phone
The
doesn't
soft
really
phone is
matter.
driving the awareness by all means. Everybody's got a soft phone. And I'm not disagreeing with that they don't need to be covered. Any device needs to be covered. You know, in my office, the soft phone might be the only or closest thing that I can reach. What I was saying is that the problem, the next problem, I believe, is going to be from a hard phone, because there's an expectation of that device working, and anybody can walk up to that device and get it to work. A soft phone, to make a 911 call, almost is a conscious decision. Should it be covered? Absolutely, by all means. I'm just
But it
saying
really-
that's not where the next one's going to happen.
But it
So-
really doesn't
so-
matter if you have a soft phone or a hard phone. It's the system in the back room, in the cloud, in the office that's providing the connectivity to 911. It doesn't matter the type of device you're on. I could have a soft phone or use my cell phone and be connected to the cloud. And if I dial off of that, I should have 911 no matter what kind of
Absolutely.
device I'm on.
Right. I had a conversation with a client actually yesterday, and we were talking about dispatchable location and specifically around mobile devices. And they said, yeah, but if you're using a mobile device, you know, that just goes to the cell tower. I said, well, under the regulations, a mobile device is any non-fixed, like a soft phone at home. So you need to resolve for that.
And to support with both what Jerry and Fletch said, it's also not just, you know, not the soft phones. You've got parking lot phones at universities. You've got, you've got a rec center that has a phone, a hard IP phone by the pool. I mean, there's all kinds of, they still have the responsibilities. So these are non-corporate located IP devices, right? And it's a big deal.
I have a question. How does that also affect these new handsets that people have that make Wi-Fi calling?
It's complicated.
Oh, let me tell you, Wi-Fi 911 is probably the biggest debacle. And if you've ever pictured the game of Mousetrap, let me tell you, Wi-Fi 911 is, you know, which has nothing to do with MLTS, by the way. You know, that's more on the cellular side. That's a problem.
Well, if nothing else in this conversation, I think that we have uncovered one of the many reasons why this should be part of a consultant's practice.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much for the discussion. I honestly did not mean to hijack the presentation at all. I'm hoping this is a good segue into actually getting down to the content to present.
Well, it's actually the perfect segue because
okay, good.
Yeah, it's perfect. And if I could, I will do the quick little introduction.
Yeah, but hold on, I got more slides.
Oh, he's got more slides, but the
You
plan
hijacked
for the
my
day
slide.
is Q&A. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
all
I
good
know.
there.
Yeah. But these are just a couple.
So
That's
can I
kinda
make let me just make one quick comment.
Sure.
And I want to say thanks to everybody, because a year and a half ago, nobody would be talking about this. So
wow.
Already think about it. Think about everything everybody knows and talks about. This by far has been a tremendous success, thanks to Sctc.
And I'd like to also make a note here that the carriers that are actually providing UCAS environments with 911 and even support to a remote location, those carriers are highlighting the fact that they can do that. The carriers that are not doing that are actually embedding caveats not only in their presentations but in their contracts as well. And some of the language in the contracts are absolutely like ridiculous. And those are those that are actually well known, like like you would say, especially when we're looking at call centers as a service, that's getting even more ridiculous, and they're pushing themselves away. And again, like someone else on the call mentioned, oh, put another phone on the desk for 911 and you have your agents use that instead. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's that.
I'm
Thanks.
just going to chime in. A lot of the attitudes are, well, just have your cell phone, your own personal cell phone sitting next to you as an employee.
Yeah. What an attitude. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Beth, just a side note, I thought we were going to run out of content today, but I guess not.
I knew from the number of times I shut down questions during our previous sessions that this was good, but this is good, you know.
Yeah.
It's
So
good.
let me inject on a couple of quick slides here. Many thanks to Vicky from Utari. Actually, I have a client opportunity to talk about a client who's getting spoofed big time. So we started discussions about that. They actually gave us some budgetary numbers. So it really is a big deal out there. She's going to provide a recap next week. I got some famous quotes on the next slide. And then again, let's keep this informal today as we have been. So a couple of famous quotes. Does anybody know who said this? There's no chance that the iPhone is going to get any significant market share.
Bill Gates.
Close. Steve Ballmer from Microsoft in 2007. Okay. This one I love. This next one. Before man reaches the moon, your mail will be delivered within hours from New York to Australia by guided missile.
Guided missile.
We stand on the threshold of rocket mail.
Rocket mail.
Anybody guess?
No idea.
Oh, God.
The U.S. Postmaster General in 1959. Okay, figured you'd enjoy that one. Okay, so we got, of course, Beth up and the team this week. Thank you, Beth. Next week, we're going to be talking about agents, friend or foe, partner or competitor, a deeper look into the new competition. There are many agents out there that are selling themselves as independent consultants. Okay, in fact, they even put it in their taglines. Okay, even in their company tagline. So Marsha will be on, Dave will be on, who've been really doing some deep dives into this. Cheryl will be sharing some of her experiences and more guests as we go. So this should be a lot of fun next week, for sure. This has been a long time coming. So social media contest winners, Mark Fletcher from week 1. Mark, were you doing this while you were in the hospital? Is that how you got to be #1?
I don't know, I guess. Shocked me too.
Okay.
His
And
name
week
was
2?
pulled out of a hat. And no,
week
what?
I
Yeah.
played the sympathy card.
And week #2, congratulations, Denise. So you got that next week, which is actually week 3. I'm sorry, begins today. Gain an entry for every comment or share of Sctc tweets during the next week. And next week, you'll see this on the right side. We will be spinning the wheel, make sure that your name is included, and we will have a winner next week. Okay. And Fran is going to have, go ahead, Fran. You're on, right, I think?
Absolutely. So
Thank you.
tomorrow during the happy hour, I will actually be joining from Cheyenne Frontier Days. Timing will be near the end of the rodeo, so there may be some bull riding to see. There may be a glimpse of the fairgrounds. There may be some issues with Wi-Fi due to the crowds. Last Friday, getting into Garth Brooks, those with electronic tickets had some issues. So that was kind of a challenge. So hopefully there won't be any challenges. We'll see what happens. So similar to the ice castles, the Dillon ice castles last year, I'll try to get you a glimpse of the event. So everybody join happy hour, connect with other members and catch up.
Great. Thank you, Fran. And a word from our sponsor, Chuck.
Great. Hi, everybody. Couple quick things that we're doing at the SCTC. We're reaching out, everybody's aware that the demographic of SCTC members is a tad on the higher side. We are constantly looking to bring in more youthful next gen members. So we're offering a pretty significant discount for the SCTC conference for the under 35 set. And you can get it with Barb, but I believe we've also got a reduced membership for under 35. So we're actively trying to grow from next gen consultants out there. We are getting good registration for the conference, but we need everybody to get on there, get out to San Diego. We got open spots on the golf tournament. It's going to be prizes, a bay cruise. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So let's get out there and get registered so we can continue our planning. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Chuck. Great stuff. Okay, so Beth, I'm going to turn the slides over to you and Greg and the team.
All right, thank you.
Sure, thank
So
you.
let's see, let's go from current slide and see what happens. Okay.
While she's doing that, one other whole new category is autonomous vehicles with 911 and intelligent speakers and, Google boxes and things like that. So that's going to be issues for consideration as well. Cars making calls, right? So.
Can I ask a question which is somewhat related to the discussion we just had?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to know about the pinpointing of the location of the
Say that again, please.
What was the question?
I think he froze.
Okay.
You froze.
Well, while we're waiting, just reintroduce the task force here and thank them. Lots of effort gone into, producing content for the Sctc and including our vendor members over here. And we just appreciate all of them and everyone's efforts. And I'm excited about the results. So let's see, now you got my face again. So the plan for today's, you are seeing the next slide, is that right?
Yeah, you may want to open up your screen a bit because we're seeing the preview instead of the actual slide, if you know what I mean.
Really?
Yeah, just go to the bottom right there and there we go.
Well, I have 3 screens and for some reason it's opening the thing on a different screen. So let's try it again. We're going to do the PowerPoint slideshow. And you're still seeing it in a preview mode.
Now we aren't.
Good now.
Oh, now we're good. We're good.
Okay.
Thanks.
All righty. So, we've been through a couple of weeks where we had a formal presentation of content and, we had different panelists talking about different things and we somewhat intentionally limited the Q&A because we felt it was important to, at least at a high level, introduce a lot of concepts. And so now we've been through that and today our plan is to share with you some of the documents we've put in the document repository and that should spark a lot of conversations, which we have the rest of the remaining time from the webinar to answer questions that people might have. So on that note, there are 3 documents that are in the document repository. 2 of them, the FAQs are in there now, and then the sample trigger documents and marketing concept, Greg Pittman is going to share, and those should get uploaded later this week. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen and switch over to sharing the Sctc website.
I don't know if you guys noticed my internet service is unstable. And while I was asking my question, it just perfect timing. It went away for a couple of minutes. So sorry.
Great. So are you now looking at the Sctc website?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
No, I'm looking at Hamid lock up again.
Well.
Did he lock up again? Oh, he looks like he did.
Okay. So let's go on and hope Hamid is able to join us here in a moment. Let's just share the screen. We'll do it that way. So we're aware that some of you, let's see, how are we doing now? Are you looking at the Sctc website?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh,
Yep, you got it.
all right. Too many screens.
Folks,
So I think-
this happened again. While I was telling you that it happened at that time. So I'm now on my iPhone. I'm using LTE rather than my Wi-Fi or my landline service. Can someone please let me know if you guys heard my question, first of all?
Did it have to do with how we know where a cellular caller is when they place a 911 call?
So, hold on, let me disconnect the desktop one. I just left the meeting on my desk. It was creating an echo. So sorry about that. I wasn't asking John about cellular calls. I was talking about someone who, for example, a business who is using SIP trunking and has DIDs. Now, do all the DIDs need to support E911 in the sense that each and every one of them identifies the exact office number of, for example, a small two-story building, or they can all basically give just the address of the building?
So if your question is dispatchable locations, if it's a multi-story building, indicates that you need to provide some floor and part of the building information. But dispatchable location is no longer tied to the specific phone number. It's tied to the location where somebody is. For example, the Ethernet port that they're connected to, or the subnet, or any number of other places, for example, if they're working from home. And task force, feel free to jump in on this question.
I think the key word you have to focus on is dispatchable location. I mean, so you want to be in a situation where the first responders can get close enough to them to find them and render aid. So that's a bit site specific. But I do think, I agree with Beth, I think at a minimum, it's got to be the floor. So if you've got network switches that are serving more than one floor, you may have to create subnets from there that are specific to the floors. And especially as people move, you've got to keep this data updated. You don't have to have every DID registered with the PSAP or with a service provider like Red Sky. But you should have enough emergency ELINs, emergency locations, that you can accurately dispatch the first responders. That's really the guiding rule.
So that rule tells me that there is some, basically it says use your own judgment. Basically, it has some room for interpretation. There is no completely precise legal rules as to.
Put it this way, the rules are not expressed in telecommunications terms. How about that?
All right,
Yeah,
so
I think there's some of that.
Let's use that to launch into our discussion about dispatchable locations in the FAQ. So, you know, what we're seeing here is if you've been to the Sctc website, you must be logged in and go to the member resources, additional resources, and then 911 resources. And you'll see two documents. One is FAQ short answers and one is FAQ long answers. So they are the same questions. In the short answer, obviously they're answered in brief. In the long answer, they provide more detail. So if we go in here and we look up, anybody remember what the dispatchable location question number is? There we go.
Okay, there you go.
Here's a start. Let's see, I know we discussed this.
Great stuff. Where are you billing all this time, guys?
Yeah, I wish.
To Chuck, we're billing Chuck.
Yeah, but to me, it looked like Chuck had a sunburn, so I'm wildly curious about that.
Yeah. Maybe he's red in the face from all the bills we sent him.
No, I was on vacation last week in Lake Sunapee, New Hampshire, and was able to enjoy a little lake time.
So Hamid, here is the discussion of what a dispatchable location is as it is written in the code.
Sure.
And this is in the short version of the FAQ. So if we look at, in fact, that was the first question. So there we go. So if you're looking in this document and somebody asks you a question and you want to give a brief answer, there is a brief answer to this question. Dispatchable location also shows up down here in question 2.
So the tricky thing is the legislation says what you have to do. It does not say how you have to do it. That's the big deal.
Okay.
Right.
So it is potentially open to interpretation in court cases because the legislation doesn't say how do you do it. It just says what you have to do.
And
Right.
so in the long answer version of that same question, there's some discussion about the risk of non-compliance and some additional resources where you could find further information about it.
And I believe we included the FCC's official definition of a dispatchable location,
Yes,
which
that is
is the
correct.
street address plus additional information necessary to locate the caller in a reasonable amount of time. But again, as Rose said, what, not how.
Right. So when I first got involved in it, just a real quick story for E911 about 15 years ago, university I was working with, had 25,000 end devices on a flat network, like that was it. Right. So, I mean, literally, and it was, 40 buildings, and like they went, we can't touch this. We're going to have to totally redesign our network. Well, yeah, they did. And over the next, 10 years, they did that. So it depends on the physicality and the logical environments of how they're doing their DIDs.
And the other part that I heard in your question that I want to make sure we address is that the location information is not tied to the telephone number, the specific DID. It's tied to the device. For example, you could have a bridged line across multiple phones. Yes, people still do that in multiple buildings. And so you would want the location where the physical device is, not the, so you can't assign it to a particular phone number and expect it to always be accurate.
Right. The reason I'm asking this question is that it has some impact on cost. So if you have to, because vendors nowadays offer DIDs that are just simple DIDs versus those that have E911 support. And usually they charge something like 40 or 50 cents more for those that do support E911.
I think one of the key points here from a consulting point of view is, especially if you're dealing with a major upgrade or replacement of a telephone system, you're going to have a conversation about networks. And you can't just assume that the network that's in place can support what you want to do. And that goes beyond just E911, but the specifics to E911 is, to make this work, you really have to sort of integrate the network with the 911 reporting. So plan for in your engagements and prepare your clients for the fact that there's going to be a network discussion and some network engineering that will happen as a result of this upgrade or conversion.
And depending on the size and the complexity of the implementation, quite probably a third-party 911 something to manage the location database and interface with the PSAP if you have multiple locations.
Yeah, the PSAP is not going to inherently transmit location, right? So something has to be in the middle somewhere, and your choices are, you got the carrier anti-alley databases, and with next generation 911, you've got the ability today on a secondary channel, but in the future on the same channel to actually transmit location payloads.
Further discussion from the panel on this subject.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would add is, as Steve Layden and I know, technology is only one piece of it.
Oh, yeah.
You have policies and your procedures and your operating practices and reviews. It's, that's technology is about 15 to 20%, and the policies and procedures and practices are the rest. So this is really more management consulting supported with technology than it is technology driven.
Exactly.
All right, Hamid, thanks for kicking us off. Who else has questions? All right, I'll keep plowing through this. See, where are we? Oh, we have 15 minutes left. All right, we'll do a little more of this and then we'll hand over to Greg. But just reminding everybody, again, there's two documents, the short and the long FAQs. The same questions are in both. Just one goes into more detail. And a reminder that no part of this is for publication. It's not okay to just cut and paste this into something that's delivered to a client or anyone else. So this is for reference for SCTC members to educate themselves.
Can I ask one question to Roberta? Since 80% is going to be people and processes, can you just give top 3 or 4 bullet points to us to remind us of what those things are that we need to consider?
If you go back to our deck that we did, I think it was the second section, we put them in there. So for example, what's the practices when a 911 call is made within your organization? Who does it go to? You know, who should be involved? So yeah, and then the policies, you know, guidelines and compliance. So if you're going to start doing annual reviews, how, you know, so if somebody questioned you, how do you keep track of your 911 calls? And then how do you make sure that the procedures were followed? So it went to this person or this organization and this. Can you prove what happened? So you need to develop the procedures to do regular audits, that kind of thing. But we did cover some of that in one of our presentations. We did.
Yeah, and here's a section of one of the FAQs. This is one specifically on campus environment, but it does talk about how do I keep my ongoing management? How do I keep my numbers up to date? Well, you really need to do a biannual review to make sure that you're still producing the right information.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually, within our practice, we've actually mapped out exactly what happens, and there's 21 different steps, and we color coded what was technology and what was other things. And you know, people look at it and go, because most organizations, and they may be geographical differences. So you may have one part of the country does things one way, the other part of the country does the other. You know, who's writing the public safety policy? So there's a lot more to it to defend and monitor and manage compliance.
Yeah, I'm gonna add one thought to that, what she just said there, because there are states who have more stringent laws on E911.
True.
And if you have an office or a location, or for that matter, a device in that state, you need to be compliant in that state on that device. And my understanding is company-wide, not just on those devices.
That's right.
And Dan, hasn't Martha told all of us that the most strict state is what you have to comply to? Even if, so let's say Michigan's the most strict, I have people in California, I have to go with the most strict state because of being fair across employees, correct?
Yeah, I think that's what legal would tell you.
Thank you.
That company.
And that's because of the jury decision. You knew what to do. You'd actually shown that you can do it, yet you chose not to over here. You've made a choice not to be as best as you could.
Yeah.
And here are two process questions from the FAQs regarding a routine for testing and, you know, having a plan for when first responders arrive. So those are process kind of questions. Greg, what were you going to say?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So one other thing to keep in mind with work from home, work from anywhere, not everybody is going to be working, quote, where their residence is, right? I know a lot of people, primarily younger people, hey, I can work from anywhere. I'm going to Hawaii for 6 months. That's not even on the corporation's radar as a location for that company, right? So we come in as consultants and they may say, oh yeah, well, to Dan's point, you know, we have locations in Montana and Illinois and Texas and Florida and Michigan, right? But they don't think about, well, this one kid who works in marketing is now out in Hawaii for 6, 9, 12 months, just because he wanted to, just because he can, right? So we need to ask more probing questions. They may not even know, right? I mean, but they need to, you know, to Roberta's point about processes, they need to think about that. And there's probably other human resource issues based on this. I hate to keep saying kid, right? But you all know I'm old from last week when I had my birthday. But, you know, when these people are working wherever, right? So we need to think about that as well. Just another nuance to consider.
Well, and it changes. Even if I am a teleworker, I could be doing a couple hours with my friend at Starbucks or at the public library, or, you know, go visit one of your offices. So, you know, I could be working from mobile or whatever and work in 30 different locations in a week.
So we're coming up on 10 minutes. And so I'm going to hand over to Greg and just remind everybody, these are the documents that are here today for consultant members. And Greg is going to show you some of the others that are, I think, fully developed and ready to post. Over to you.
Beth, can
Yeah.
I wanted to add something about the cloud service, and then I have a question about global. With the cloud service and in reference to what Bill spoke about earlier, one of the clients that I work with, which is actually using open source or open text for their call center, they explicitly state that they're not liable for 911 calls, nor do they allow it in their policies. But they integrate with the Zoom phone for the desktop. So there's not necessarily another phone, it's an integration with the Zoom phone for the desktop. And just recently Zoom bought that company, so that integration is compliant. But what we find when we're talking to some of these cloud providers is they believe if they hand out the spreadsheet, get the location information back, they've done their part. They're not educating those clients on on-site notification. They're not tracking when things move, add, or change. They just put in their documentation that you're responsible for telling us if something moves. And so that's where we come in as consultants, is really to help that enterprise organization understand that just filling out that spreadsheet does not keep you compliant. And the service providers for cloud services do not necessarily offer all those other features that some of those vendors like Red Sky and West and 911 Inform and Intrado and Bandwidth offer. So I just wanted to clarify that because that's very common in cloud services, and a lot of people are moving that way. So it's very good for us to be aware of that. In addition, I have a question. So I haven't worked with global. I'm in, like we were just talking about with the mobile workforce, and especially the millennials, they work from anywhere. I'm very aware of what the list of vendors offer for work from home folks, identifying their location here in the US. What I'm not clear on is how that works globally. I don't have that experience. I'm wondering if anyone on the call does.
We actually have some global clients and have been looking into this for their distributed offices. And obviously the requirements are different by country. Spain has a requirement that's stated it's not nearly as complex as ours. Mexico does not. And so there are some vendors that today cover some of the countries in addition to the United States. Some are expanding their roadmap. So I would expect to see this continuing to grow and vendors to continue to expand their footprint. And it's just a matter of understanding how the regulations are different in different countries and finding a solution. There are solutions that can cover different countries.
Well, and so my question specifically into the customer is a US company, but for example, their employees working in Mexico for several months remotely. But as we just talked about, we're responsible for that employee's safety.
Right.
And so if the call is redirected in Mexico to some of these providers, such as Red Sky, I haven't actually asked them this, does that work? I know Mexico's been recently added, so that's maybe a bad example, but say Australia or something like that. I'm just wondering, these applications work with the software and they travel with the end user, but they reroute to potentially a local 911 center. Does that integration work when they're traveling globally?
No. So the concept of dynamic location updating that Red Sky and others perform does not exist outside of the United States and Canada. Outside of the United States and Canada, you can work with a local carrier to get static location. So if you have an office in London, you certainly can map a network component to an ELAN, and then some system can push the ELAN as the calling party number. But if you take a soft phone and want to update your location, it takes about 3 days to update the location, as opposed to here where it's done in real time.
And an interesting question, is it an employee of the United States that has traveled to Mexico, or is this a company that has local presence in both places and therefore a separate system in Mexico that the phone numbers are already tied to.
An employee that has traveled.
But it could also be, I've had ones where it's a branch office in the other country with a gateway tied to the main US-based system, right? So there's a lot of variations. There is no, unfortunately, there is no E911 Gartner reports, you know, where you can see all the vendors and who's doing what.
Right.
And you know, I mean, Forrester has a bit, and the same thing applies with NG 911. This is an early area, but it's going to become more important over time.
Well, it's
All
hard to
right,
have
so
a magic
can we hand
quadrant.
back over to Greg to finish up here?
Okay, thank you. So this first thing is kind of an introductory letter you could use to reach out to your clients. This was created by, and I apologize, I don't remember for sure, either Chuck or Steve on one of the original 911 presentations to our group. But this is a letter, you know, that you could customize, but it gives you kind of a initial word and verbiage to use as you reach out to your clients to let them know that you're available to help them with these issues. So that's one thing we'll be putting out there. Another is this, we're calling it a quick card or trigger. So the idea is conceptually, you know, consultants would have this with them and you look at it right before you go in the meeting, you know, with potential clients, right? And so it's to help you stay familiar with things that they could be bringing up or doing that should trigger you to then say, okay, what about 911? How are you dealing with that? Did you just break 911 because you're, you know, letting people work from home or whatever, right? So these are some quick things for you to think about as a consultant as you go in to meet with your clients. And if you see some of these, this might be a really good time to say, we need to also include reviewing 911 with you as part of the scope of work or whatever. This is what I alluded to earlier from Denise's question and Art's comment in the chat. Here's a real world example of what we were talking about, a cloud provider. And here's their little CYA in red here about, we're not going to help, you know, you're on your own kind of basically for 911, but it's really, you know, worded poorly, as you can imagine, and trying to, you know, CYA themselves, right? So in this case, the consultant sent back a message to the vendor to try to clarify this, you know, and that sort of thing. And then there was a response to the, you know, from the vendor to the consultant and client. Again, this is just one example, you know, and we're not picking on whoever it was. I mean, I see it says Mitel in there, but it's, you know, it may have been a value-added reseller that was selling that. And so then here's the advice that the consultant gave to the client. And so, you know, they're introducing the idea of Kerry's Law and Ray Baum's Act. And, you know, we can help you. We have experts, you know, in our group that we can partner with, and we, you know, we'll be able to help you. We want you to be, you know, we're working for you, right? We're partnering with you, Ms. Client, and we want to support you as best we can. So again, just an example of what you might see out there in the real world. And to Denise's question, maybe this is how the client ends up even hearing that things have changed with 911, right? I mean, it's not an official thing. It's not even written that well or whatever, but, you know, maybe it brings it up. So hopefully you can be involved with the client when they're getting these kind of things and then say, all right, let's look at that. Look how that's written. Let me try to help you understand what this is really meaning, right? So that's the idea there. I'm going kind of quick here. We'll put these up as soon as we can. There's one more I want to show you. And I'll definitely give credit to Fletch here because he helped create this document, but this is like a little flyer. And, you know, there's room here where you could put your contact information as you send it out to prospects or current clients or even past clients, right? I mean, this is a great opportunity, as Steve and Chuck had talked about, and Roberta and others in previous presentations. This is a perfect time to reach out to clients and say, remember me, I helped you before. Look, here's something new. We need to talk. You know, it's, again, it's about getting in front of your clients and knowing that as a member of SCTC, I mean, I don't want to overemphasize this, but I think it's super important. As a member of SCTC, we've got all these people behind us to support us. A lot of them are members, consultants who have done this, have a lot of experience in it, a lot of vendor advisory council members that we can call on and you know, as Cheryl was saying, I mean, we're getting a lot of value by being in the group and having VAC members and that sort of thing. So I know we're almost out of time. I'll get these loaded in the next few days or week or so. I'll work with Cap Hill and Cheryl Helm to you know, make sure we get them put in the right place.
Great.
And I'll
Well,
stop.
great. Okay. Okay, Beth, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, again, thanks to all the committee members for, you know, just the outstanding effort. I think all of us are available to help if somebody has a project coming up and they need some support on it. Certainly, anyone on the task force can help with that. And then feel free to reference the documents. If any of the links are broken, let me know. They worked when they weren't on the SCTC website, but they might not work now that they've been moved over. So let me know if the links
No, they're
aren't
working.
working.
They're working.
They're all working? Okay, good. Good to know.
All right. Well,
And
thanks,
Steve,
everybody.
if you don't mind, can I just add one thing?
Sure, Mark.
This is just my perspective from a UCAS provider. I thought this was an outstanding discussion. And I can tell you that there is an enormous opportunity for consultants to help customers out. I mean, we're doing our end as a UCAS provider. We're compliant. I mean, we actually have special programs. We're working with Red Sky and Entrada right now. There's going to be end user apps that are going to be available for the end users, specifically for soft phones, for them to actually make changes as they're becoming dynamic. But I will tell you that there is an enormous appetite for clients to utilize your services to help them through this process. So I thought it was really interesting today.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for that. And thanks everybody for joining. And we will see you again, same time, same bat channel next week.
Thanks,
Yeah, everybody.
Great
Stay
job,
safe.
guys. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.